Good afternoon, Tony Dottino, and it is Wednesday, moving along here on the week. And today I had a really fun, enjoyable morning with what we call our mystery guests at the YMCA Brain Institute, a workshop that is done and held for people with mild cognitive impairment or early dementia, or just feeling that they're looking to be in social circle where they're still willing to learn something, where they're still actively engaged in wanting to learn. So there's 12, 14 people that are enrolled in this workshop. It runs 4 hours, 2 days a week. And it has a series of exercises they go through, anywhere from physical exercise for 30 minutes, where they're actually engaged in physical movement and exercise. They then get a half hour after lunch to do what they call a ball toss, and they circle around the room, and they're active. So the whole point of it is to get them engaged in movement. It's all about movement, which is one of the things that we're learning is important about our long-term mental and physical health. Well, a second thing that we learned, or probably one of the most important things we're learning now, is the importance of social interaction. And so we're trying to teach these men and women that are in the workshop how to engage people that they meet, whether they're shopping or they're in a grocery, they're in a store or a grocery store, or they're in a retail store of any sort, whether they're out in a fast food place, going out to a restaurant. How do they learn to interact with people that they meet along the way, so that they enhance their social interactions in terms of how it helps them to feel alive and how it helps them to stay alive? A study came out of Hopkins, which was amazing, was socially interactive people can live average 7 years longer. I mean, it's like, God, now it doesn't mean you have to be a social animal and you got to be out there meeting people every day, but it means you can't get to the stage in your life where you feel lonely or you feel lost or isolated or like nobody cares and nobody's with you at all. And so a lot of these folks, as they get older, and as we learned today, our mystery guest had a number of his dear friends that have all passed, and there's only one that's alive, and he's in a assisted living center. And so when your friends and your social networks, your wife, in his case, his wife passed away 19 years ago, and you feel alone, you feel like you're a lost soul, what is it that you do to maintain some level of activity and some level of involvement with people? So we have, every couple of weeks, we bring in a mystery guest, and today we had a gentleman by the name of Paul, and I'll just leave it at Paul. His last name is not relevant to this. It's more important about Paul. And Paul is a neighbor of mine here in Windermere, Florida, and I've learned some things about Paul that are just famous and fabulous, excuse me. He should be famous. That was just mind-blowing. And so I asked him if he'd be willing to be a mystery guest, and had a chance to ride with him driving over to the YMCA and Dr. Phillips, and had a chance to ride back with him, and just the sharing of what he does and sharing stories, just amazing. And so what we do is we have the mystery guest sit in the front of the room, and Paul brought 2 bags with him that had some interesting things in it. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Paul sat in the chair, and then the attendees have to look at him and start by asking, what questions would you like to know from this person that's sitting in the room? We're trying to teach these people it's simple to engage strangers in conversation just by asking the right questions and engaging and starting a dialogue of some sort. And so what we do is we write down 6 questions. So we go around the room and we get at least 6 people to give us, okay, what would you like to know about our mystery guest? And so we had 6 questions that we put up on the board. And then the attendees or the participants start to ask Paul these questions. Obviously, the first one being, what is his name? And then as he gave his name, he immediately shared, I'm 91 years old. It's like, whoa. So right off the bat, it's like, bam, I'm Paul, and I'm 91 years old. They wanted to know about his family. So as he talked about his family, he started with his mother and father and how they bought a property in Connecticut. And so now he began, well, wait a minute, we're in Florida. Paul's lived most of his life in Connecticut and Stratford, and he talked about Shakespeare. And so It just off the question of, do you have family? Do you have any family members? And off he went with a great story about his mother and father and what they were like and how they brought people together from the family. So there were always social activities in the house. There were always celebrations and things for birthdays and anniversaries and things of one sort. And so right off that bat, do you have any family? And because a lot of these people don't have a lot of family. They're for whatever reasons, in some cases their children have died, some cases their spouse has died, and their friends have passed, and so it's just a wide range of interesting stories just off of, Paul, do you have family? And then, of course, when my son left Connecticut, he decided to come down here and work, and my daughter-in-law works in Disney. It was like, okay, wait a minute, now you're down in Florida, and how'd you get here, and when did you get here? And so he talked about when he came down here, he was always interested in coming to Florida, and he had a condo, and his son is real estate, and finds this place and says, Paul, Dad, you got to buy this place, and so I'm going to sign you up to buy it. You don't even need to look at it, I'm telling you to buy it. So his dad buys him this beautiful house. It's 4 doors from me that looks out on a magnificent pond with a backdrop of trees and fireworks at night from Disney and gators that swim within it from time to time. And people catch fish there, so they're fishing along and they're pulling out the 4 or 5 pound bass out of this pond, which we don't want the word to spread around that. But and so he's talking about his transition to Florida. And then somebody asked the question, God, you look pretty fit. Watching you walk, you carry those 2 bags, whatever is in those bags, you look pretty fit. And he then proceeded to talk about, he walks 3.5 miles every day. He may do that in 2 miles and 2 mile breaks. But then what he shared, which was interesting, and I hadn't thought about it, might want to do this, is he walks, and then every few minutes of walking, he runs 100 steps. So he actually, and he showed how he goes and runs. He says, look, I'm not running a marathon, I'm not running a race, but every so often I run 100 steps of running, and I do that 5 times. So in the 3.5 miles of what I'm doing in walking, I run 5 times 100 steps. I'm gonna have to do that. I've never thought about that, nor have I counted, how many steps I run. I run every 3 times a week, and I run 2 miles. But I never thought of when I'm walking, gee, how about if I run 100 steps and see how long that takes and what that feels like? Now, why does he do that? Because he had heart surgery at one point in time, and this was a good thing that he learned to do in terms of walking and running, good for his heart muscle and keeping his airwaves and his lungs working and his heart pumping. And so he talked about his exercise and then talked about his foods. He doesn't eat red meat, so that's something, he gave up alcohol, maybe a glass of wine a few times a week, but he gave up alcohol a while back, and hard drinks, no hard alcohol. And again, his eating habits, his social, and he starts talking. As I walk, I meet people. I love to talk with people. I love to meet people and learn about them, and I enjoy sharing my experiences of life with them, and as long as they're interested. And so he's got the social, he's got the physical exercise activity, he's got the nutritional activities, and then he says, and look, and I even play in the garden. I like to go out and work in the dirt, and I like to plant different plants and things of that sort. So he's out what he calls getting into nature, and we, of course, we live in an area where there's nothing but trees and the gators I already told about, and the water. So he's in nature and he's digging in his garden, and so he's doing all the right things. And then sleep, what he's doing for sleep, he gets to bed by 10 o'clock every night. He's up at 5 in the morning, and he's making himself his cup of coffee and whatever he wants to do in the morning, and then he goes out and does his walk. Sometimes when it's dark, he doesn't like walking in the dark all the times, but certain times of the year he's out walking in the dark, and that's how I get to see him. I go out and do my run, and I see him, doing his walk, and I'm doing my run, and I would go by him. And one day I came back, finished my run, and I just walked back to his house, not realizing I passed mine. we were engaged in such a terrific conversation, and next thing he's inviting me in, and I'm looking at these paintings that he does, which now is, they asked about his hobbies. What hobbies do you have? And he started sharing about painting, and so he brought some of his paintings. That just blew the whole place apart. His paintings are magnificent. A couple of people would love to have them, so he brought these little postcards. He had them little postcard size pictures, and he gave those out to people. You would have thought they were getting $1 million. Just looking at the work that he did and the pictures that he asked and brought to him. It's just amazing, amazing, amazing. And so he has an art studio, and he paints when he gets, looking for something to do, and he gets to the point where he wants to be active, and he'll go into his art studio and he'll do paintings. And he'll start with different sizes and his imagination for this is just amazing. So the more we all listen, we being all of us in the room, listen to him, they didn't want him to leave. It was one of these people that had just fascinating stories, and I could go on and on with his stories from when he was a teacher in school, math and science, and when he was a superintendent, and what happened there. But it was just an incredible story of people talking to people and having a conversation that just no one wanted it to end. But it got to be lunchtime, and they have some other activities in their program that they get to during lunchtime. But he just had lots of little huddles with people just thanking him for just a really fabulous morning of where he got to spend time sharing his life histories and stories with him. And that was inspiring to the people that were part of it. And so that was today's mystery guest at the Brain Institute at the YMCA. Great morning, and of course it's a Wednesday, and I wanted to make sure I got my Live with Tony done today, because a few Mondays I've kind of slipped past them and didn't realize Wednesday went by until it was Thursday. So have a good evening, and we'll see you back here on Friday.